And like I said, when it comes back to it, the weapons here in this game are probably some of my favorite. They're fun designs. They seem very practical for the most part. Yeah, they're giant, but I mean, look at the size of us. Alright guys, we gotta do it. And you also want to know what the teeth of this shotgun are made out of. The fact that they can just chew through plate metal like that. Like that's everything. It's like bone and stuff is pretty dense, but I can easily see, oh, this is how a chainsaw could easily go through that. Watching it chew through those things, and I'm just like, what the hell is going on? I like how it's like defiance, like we know shit's going wrong here, and you guys are just, you know, we're gonna make sure we take note of it, and they do just keep coming, so it does feel like they have to push you back. Let's take this guy down real quick. Oh, God damn. And this is one of those points where it feels really good because you push up through this rather easily, and then you get here, and just these two sets here just keep pushing you back. And we kind of now are just stuck with taking on that enforcer here and just trying to lay waste to it. And it's 4 of us here. Now, 3 of us are military trained, but Kat, she never feels like a slouch, like having to defend herself as part of, you know, the outcast, having to like fight for her survival against the cog, whether it's avoiding any sort of like entanglement in the future, or just this idea that, you know, monsters are just people that are also outside the cog that aren't necessarily as helpful or friendly as the outcasts are. Maybe the outcasts have had some conflicts over different disputes or fighting over resources, because it kind of seems like they'd be digging around for scraps, but not necessarily just like, you know, oh, we all need to destroy each other, get whatever scraps that we can here. I guess would be the best way to put it there. Like, you could definitely see how they would have conflict, and the fact that her uncle's like, no, I'm going to teach you how to fight, and he does teach her how to fight. So, I mean, they obviously have a need for it, and she seems incredibly competent. Look, guys, a lot of people are like, oh, blah, 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 they're going to mess up my tomatoes, and they had problems. Tomatoes are fucking delicious. I'd be pissed off if people came through my greenhouse and started fucking up my tomatoes. I'd be so, like, I would fucking, a good tomato, I would destroy a motherfucker for ruining a good tomato plant. Another condor. What the hell did you guys do? Now, I like how it's, you know, Marcus is trying to figure out what you did that would make things this bad or make Jin come after you this much, and you actually don't know. Like I said, she does charge you with sedition and treason, but it's not necessarily feeling like that's it. I love how they're just like, unlawful. It feels very RoboCop-esque. And now in Gears 5 coming out, they do have a tie-in with the Terminator. And I feel like that's very, very appropriate, because like I said, these things, they don't necessarily feel as powerful as the Terminator, at least these smaller ones, but the larger ones definitely feel like they could do some real damage to you. I think these are going to be 2 of the larger guys. Yes. Nope, and that's it. There we go. Second death of the game. That's still a really cool... That is a really, really epic... Really epic screen there. Just all the armor lined up. And he does say, you know, these are family heirlooms. Like, they kind of got to leave with that armor. And I said, he did make the door comment there. She's like, it feels like wearing a door. And he's like, that's good. That's how it's supposed to feel. It's thick armor. It's not pretty. It's not necessarily comfortable. You don't always have the greatest movement, but it's going to keep you alive. So I do greatly enjoy that aspect of it. It does make it feel a little bit more real, and it also shows that he cares, you know, for this girl. And he's like, I realize that you're in this, and you did save your family. He listened to their story. He was upset. He said his piece, but he still listened and just blow them off. I think it says a lot about Marcus's character, because you kind of get to see that in the first 3 games. You do see how he is as a character, and the fact that he does have a good sense of justice and fighting for what's correct, what's right, and what he's supposed to. Alright, let's see if I can not get killed by these guys this time. I didn't realize they actually screamed malfunction there. Like, that's a little insane. Alright, no deaths that time. So now we're okay. We can just keep pushing through. Hey, look, a tomato plant's still standing.
Come on, let's keep moving.
No, it's not. I said I would wreck a motherfucker for destroying my tomato plants. Tomatoes are delicious.
Just follow the path.
And I like that we also deal with the wind flares as they creep up now. Almost like this planet is war-ravaged. They talk about the Pendulum Wars, where they fight over emulsion, which is their end-all be-all.
Everyone, back to the green.
Their end-all be-all form of like
is better shelter. We're almost there.
End-all be-all form of fuel. This is going to be the fuel that saves them, almost like petroleum is for us, that everyone was so reliant on it that we had conflicts over it. It woke up the Locust, which is what brings about E-Day, Emergence Day, that you saw earlier on. And then it also looks like all the exposure of it to the planet and everything else that we've done, all the wars that we've had, that we've now forever altered the landscape of the planet, much like we've done to our own. Like, it does feel like, not necessarily one-to-one, but it does feel like they are making a conscious effort to say, this is what's going on here, and hey, we've done some irreparable damage to our planet. Now, one of the other things that you actually get to notice here is, if you get that, your spark glows a little bit bluer to show that you are doing increased damage as you fire, but it doesn't give it to you for the entirety of your magazine. It only gives it to you for like the last little bit of it, or the first part of it. And as you reload and get more and more active reloads, it gets the sweet spot to give you the boost, plus the amount of damage that you're doing gets lower and lower, and then it gets harder to hit that sweet spot.
We hunkered down here, waited out.
But isn't this building a little wooden?
It'll hold. Are you sure about that? It'll hold.
Now, when it comes to an electrical storm, not actually the worst idea out there, because wood doesn't conduct electricity. However, could still catch on fire. Now, those planes have seemed to be giant, massive, almost reminiscent of our B-52 bombers. And then you watch it fly into the storm. That's it. The storm lays waste to it. So that gives you a sense of how powerful and how devastating these storms are. Not just because...
Not a goddamn word.
Not just because of the damage that you get to see there, which is very localized, and it's like, oh, it looks like a tornado might have come through, but there's something else that's considerably stronger about them than, you know, even just a tornado. And if you even look at the bots here, they do wear armor that is very reminiscent of the classic COG armor. It does have the circles on it of the breastplate and everything else. So it doesn't feel necessarily like it's... It feels like they did take the design for, you know, a really, really good reason. And that, hey, even though we're building these bots, the armor that we had works. Maybe a couple upgrades here, a little bit of mobility stuff. But it's good armor, and it's so good that we're going to incorporate it into our designs for what we're going to use to like enforce the law or protect our people or anything else that you want to bring about and say that it has.
Give me the goddamn creeps.
I remember when DBs were just glorified garbage.
So I like it. He talks about the DBs. They were garbage collectors. They were just going around like picking up the refuses of war. They were picking up the parts of like maybe they were doing, you know, like cleaning up things that were maybe they were picking up just the contaminated areas of the conflict, the emulsion warp, things that we didn't necessarily want to put people next to. We wanted to, you know, protect us and just say, hey, if we can put a robot here and we can, you know, not expose us to radiation or anything like that, why not do that? Why not try to make it a little bit better and safer for our people? And I do think that's what it is. And then Marcus says, like, he's like, when the Shepherds went online, we said we had combat units. He's like, I said what I thought, and that was it. So it does feel like, hey, these things had a very benign and actually purposeful, you know, upbringing or purposeful design, and then eventually they were just appropriated for more because we said, okay, we can, one, protect our people here, and then two, now we can have these robots that won't question orders, so that way maybe it's people don't always agree with what the COG are doing because they're like, I don't want to give up my freedoms, blah, 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 this is what I thought, anything that you have there. And so we're like, well, people need to give up some freedoms, and we need people who won't question orders and are willing to do things that maybe aren't exactly in line with their moral codes. Not because we're evil, but because this is what it's going to take to survive. And so you build these robots that don't hesitate when it comes to following orders. They'll do whatever you say and do whatever is necessary along the line with what you believe. That way you have a unified front and are willing to go where they need to in order to save, in order to keep the peace, and in order to enforce the law of the land, or what the COG deem as necessary. Sorry about that little bit of a ramble there. Sometimes it's a little bit harder to think and shoot, but I like to think I'm doing a pretty decent job at it. Boop. There we go, just took off its head. Like I said, I aim for the head, but it never really seems like there's it doesn't tell you that there's a spot that, like, would be more beneficial or less beneficial when it comes to fighting them. Part of me is like, probably punching through the armor or hitting, like, at the joints would do the most damage.